Hello listeners, you're listening to NPK Live and I have the absolute pleasure of being with Green Planet Nutrients. We're going to be discussing everything that they do. The fellas that I'm with are really passionate, so you're in for one hell of a podcast. So tune in, listen up and get yourself a cup of tea. So, I'm here with Justin. How have you found the show?
So far the show's been excellent. Very, very well received, and it's been exciting because a lot of the growers have been coming directly to our booth and been very excited about the products. And we don't do a lot of marketing on our products, and this is important because we've always relied on word of mouth as a marketing tool, and our growers that use our products tell their friends and tell their friends, and we're seeing great success. And for over 20 years, that's how we built the company. We haven't been the flashy company throwing interesting ads and marketing subpar products. We've been built on serious science and quality products, and that's how we've always worked on the products. We put the money into the products instead of marketing.
Yeah, well, as our listeners and our subscribers know, they know what NPK and our podcast, what we stand for. I've met Green Planet Nutrients for the first time today, met Justin for the first time today, and that's why we've got him on the show, because he's passionate, and you're going to hear a no bullshit podcast. He's going to pull no punches. So tell us a little bit about Green Planet Nutrients and the history about them. Why did you get into business?
So I've been in the industry for over 22 years, and we've seen drastic changes. Originally, quality, trichome production, these things weren't as important. And we've seen globally, we've seen the market change to quality. And unfortunately, what I've found with a lot of the UK growers so far is they haven't looked at the quality. They've been thinking strictly production, but they haven't looked at genetics, and they haven't looked at sound practices within the garden to achieve better quality product. And they're going to have to step up and choose for better products, better nutrients, better practices, not using pesticides that are harmful to the plant, harmful to the people.
Can you name some of those pesticides? Just name a couple that customers should be on the lookout for.
Well, I don't recommend anything with avimectin in it.
Okay.
Avid is, in my opinion, a toxic product. And every time you use products that are DDTs or organophosphates, these things have negative effects on the plant. Diazinon and all these other things that really are toxic, and you shouldn't be using them because first and foremost, you're going to forego yield. Secondly, you're going to have a plant that's weaker and not able to produce its maximum yield. So we really promote natural pesticides or products that have, insecticidal soaps. Them by themselves aren't super effective, but when you use them in conjunction to a integrated pest management program where you're spraying insecticidal soap with a neem oil, and then you use something like Mega Wash, which is a fantastic product that very few people have heard of, that contains anywhere from 16 to 22 frequencies imprinted into the actual water. These things have great effect on killing bugs and benefiting the overall health of the plant. So when it comes to getting into an integrated pest management program, you should be using multiple products and not harming the plant and promoting overall health and yield. And people should look for the natural alternative, spend a little more time, a little more work than spraying the, toxic organophosphate style products for the 1-2 punch, where it involves a little bit more work. But in the end, last time I looked, these plants aren't inexpensive, and it's worth the time and effort to put the energy into it and source out better products for better yields.
Exactly. So if I could translate that into us as humans, we wouldn't put anything toxic into our bodies, and when we do, then our immune system is affected, we can then become weaker, and it's exactly the same for plants. If you're going to hit them with chemicals, they're going to become weaker, they're going to suffer on the yield, they're going to suffer on the quality. So I completely replicate your ideas of using natural products. And the great thing about natural products is, if you're using chemicals, if you have any problems in flower, you can't use these chemicals because it'll either leave a residuey taste or it just leaves bad products.
So true. But it seems as though in this market, people don't care. And globally, currently Green Planet's sold on a global level, and globally people very much do care. And they're very concerned, and they're very aware of what's going in the product, especially with a lot of the commercial production. It's being tested through a mass spec for pesticides. And people with compromised immune systems When they're looking for medicinal varieties of plants, they need to make sure that they're not personally compromising their immune system. So a lot of the production in the world is going through mass spec and being tested for organophosphates and such. So the last thing you want to do is, if someone has a illness themselves, you don't want to give them a product that's going to compromise their immune system. You want to give them a good quality product that's going to help with all the natural benefits of medicinal plants.
Exactly. If you're growing plants for medicinal use, if you're extracting oils from lavender plants and putting them into ointments, whatever it is you're doing, you're looking to increase your health. So why affect the health of a plant by using chemicals? Completely agree with you. And all the listeners should be thinking long and hard. If you're using chemicals, just bear in mind what we're saying today. Go to your local grow shop, have a chat about the natural pesticides, fungicides, and the added benefits, correct me if I'm wrong, of using natural products is they tend to have a good effect on the plants anyway.
You do. I mean, Mega Wash, for example, 24 hours after spraying these imprinted waters, you'll notice the plant will stand up, and it'll really, really go into an active growth stage. You're not only dealing with insects, be it thrips, mites, broad mite, whitewash, also designed for PM or powdery mildew. You're not noticing only that you're dealing with an environmental factor on the plant. You're also seeing positive health within the plant, and very, very quickly. So that's another positive spin-off with using something natural. Yes, you might have to reapply. Yes, you might have to, spray every 3 days because you're going to have to interrupt the actual life cycle of that mite. But once you've done it for 2 weeks, you've gotten rid of the problem permanently. And
another, I've just thought, before I lose the thought, another great thing about using natural pesticides is that the pests don't become resistant.
They don't. You better believe it. I mean, one thing we've seen over the last 20 years is ivermectin does not work in our market anymore, where it used to be the go-to. That was the commercial product before we knew better, 20 plus years ago. And ivermectin, those mites are completely immune to it. It has zero effect.
It's a great way of looking at evolution. The mites that were resistant to the ivermectin, they survived, they reproduced. All those are resistant to ivermectin, they reproduce. So now, when you use a chemical, as with, you probably know about antibiotics, more bacteria becoming really immune to these antibiotics, and we're getting super bugs. We're soon going to see super plant bugs if we carry on with these chemicals. So take-home message is go clean, go natural with 100%, your pesticides.
100%. It involves a bit more work, but it's well worth the effort.
Now, you're not just about Mighty Wash. You've got a whole line of fantastic products. You've been talking to me throughout the show about these products. And as you were talking to me, your passion, and I think I've worked out what type of person you are. You're about quality over quantity and just having a great quality product. What some of the other products you want to talk about?
So at Green Planet, we're not only about quality over quantity, we're about quantity also. It has to produce. And it has to produce well. We've been on many, many different channels under YouTube. Some of the largest growers are using our products and winning, cups on a global level. There's many accolades that we've had over the many, many years we've been in business. And we're one of the first manufacturers also. We've been around a lot longer than most. And one of Green Planet's mantras has always been, how do we do it better? What ingredients do we source out that are better? What additives can we do to make a product better for the end user, more economical for the end user, and provide a better punch? I mean, we're one of the only manufacturers. We source from Israel, Germany, Canada, the US. I don't buy from third world countries. I don't put subpar products. I'm not interested in becoming more profitable. I'm interested in making the best products for the industry. And this has really been a driving force behind Green Planet's success, has been people recognize that with the Green Planet products, they have more favorable results. You don't see us in a bunch of magazine ads. We don't do a lot of marketing, or fluffy marketing is the way I look at it. People that try our products, they have better results than the competitors, and then they tell their friends. And we've really built our brand on word-of-mouth marketing. From Massive. Massive is our flower size increaser. It increases overall terpene profile, density, size, aroma, everything. It's got everything in the kitchen sink. It's got all your amino acids. It's got a huge PK spike. We're one of the only companies that extract our own natural PGRs. We extract tricantanol derived from bees waste. We actually extract it off the hive, off the epidermis of the hive itself.
That's really cool.
Where a lot of manufacturers just throw together a few nutrients and they say, let's throw as much advertising dollars at the product. We actually put the money back into the product. R&D, we've got full PhDs on staff, always trying to tweak and make our products better. That's been the big focal point of the company. And I'm not here to shoot down any other nutrient manufacturer. I'm just saying we're trying to make set ourselves apart from everyone.
Like we do with everything that we do, whether it's our podcast or anything we do in the shop. It's not about beating everybody else. It's about beating yourself and constantly being the best you can be.
Totally. We're always trying to raise the bar.
One of the other products that I'm really interested in, because I'm actually doing some trials on these type of products, is your bricks. You've got a bricks product. For people who don't know, bricks is how we measure sugar content. So in your tomatoes, in your strawberries, in anything nice, and everything's got sugar, but something like your strawberries, let's take for example, increased bricks content, increased sugars, increased flavour. What's this bricks product and what does it do?
So it's really important to know Bricks Plus is not, there used to be a product made, I believe, by a company called Gorilla Gardener in Europe. And they had a product called Bricks Plus, which was actually quite toxic to plants. It was actually spraying a silica onto the plant, and it made for really negative flowers. Our Bricks Plus does increase sugar content in the plant. It actually is a way of the plant absorbing carbohydrates through the leaf. I don't recommend, some people use the product inappropriately, and actually during their cure they add it to the plant. It was never designed for that. So I just want to say that as a caveat. Bricks Plus is a carbohydrate and tricanthanol based product. It's also got yucca, so it's got antifungal properties. So if someone were to have any powdery mildew or black spot on the plant, it'll naturally also subside or keep that at bay. But it also does increase bricks content. I do recommend spraying it lightly the last 14 days of harvest, and one more application a week before harvest, so that all the residue within the plant and within the product is actually absorbed into the leaf tissue, and you're not ending up with excessive carbohydrates, because burning carbohydrates on a plant can be toxic.
And what do you mean by burning carbohydrates, just for the listeners?
If someone were to actually take that flour and burn it.
Like the tobacco plant?
Like the tobacco plant, I don't recommend it having a residual. And by the final week, it'll be absorbed enough that you won't have any residue on the plant. It's been misused, and unfortunately there is a competitive product. It's not been on the market for many years that was called Bricks Plus, and unfortunately there's, the ocean's quite a big way, and years ago when we called it Bricks Plus, there was never, something called the internet that everybody shared information on, and unfortunately, we both shared the same name called Bricks Plus, and it's we've unfortunately fought that name, because that product was actually, from what we understood, quite toxic, and we're not comparing apples to apples at all on that product.
So if you're looking at the Bricks Plus product, make sure it's Green Planet Nutrients Bricks Plus. That's the nutrient that we're talking about.
It's 100% organic and 100% safe to use on the plant.
Awesome, excellent. Now, one of the products that our listeners must have heard about is the Terpinator. It's getting a lot of coverage. People are talking about it. People are telling their friends about it. Now we've got the genius that helped create it. Tell us a little bit more about Terpinator.
I have to preface that statement. We're not actually the manufacturer of it. In this case, Green Planet as a company, if I don't manufacture something, I still want it to be under my umbrella. Because if we're going to do anything, for example, in Canada, we have our own wholesale called Green Planet Wholesale. We're East Coast, West Coast, and we sell throughout all the U.S. as Green Planet Wholesale. So we're not only a manufacturer of Green Planet nutrients, but we also have exclusive distribution on many products that we try to put under our umbrella, because if we're going to marry a product, we want it to be either private label Green Planet, or we want it to be under our umbrella. So we've sourced out the highest quality LED light or HID lighting, or we've done Gorilla Grow Tent, for example, which is the best tent on the market. Or we've done, as an LED, we're running the Spectrum King, which is a fantastic full spectrum LED, which we're happy to be tied to. Or Hyperfan, for example, or Fresh Filter. These products are better than their competitors. They're either more energy efficient. So we honestly look very much at, from a gardener's perspective, the dollar per watt yield. So if I'm putting 1 watt to create a better yield, I want to have the most energy efficient exhaust fan. It's a very small thing. Or a 450 watt LED light that's yielding in excess of 1,000 watt in some circumstances. These things matter a lot. So the end consumer can get more yield per watt. And that makes, obviously, as a business, that makes the consumer more profitable. And if we can make the consumer put less money in, either using electricity, less money in, and more money out, that's just sound business. And if they're using products that are more effective, yield enhancing, of better source, the product's going to be, you're going to be going for a higher end product, which is obviously more valuable, and you're going to have something that's cleaner. One thing we've always noticed when we have a pure, cleaner source of nutrient is there's less, for let's say tobacco, you're going to get less white ash. And that's something that, may not be noticeable to most, but, a lot of judges are looking at our products. So, for example, if you ever have a chance, go on YouTube and put in Green Planet Nutrients. And, like we were saying, we're very proud of many accolades because a lot of our customers are winning cups. And those judges of those cups are looking at ash. How does it burn? What's the overall flavor and the aromas that are being produced? These things are very, very important.
Yeah.
And,
so, in essence, what we're saying is even if Green Planet Nutrients haven't made the product, anything that you do have follows the same vein of professionalism and quality that you would put in a product yourself. So anything that you have, you put the same amount of effort and time and love into.
Anything that falls under our umbrella is top shelf. I won't distribute a inexpensive carbon filter. I'm not interested in cheap quality products. We've always gone for top shelf, and I mean we don't have any products that are worth $100 or £100 or £50 a liter. There's a lot of products in this industry that are excessively expensive, and there's no reason for them to be excessively expensive because there's no crazy. No one has a magic ball saying, "Ooh, it's amazing," but unfortunately, the grower has been marketed to so effectively, and the amount of bullshit that's been shoved down their throat to get better yields, they think that, unfortunately, the grower doesn't realize it all starts with high-end genetics. If you have a high-end genetic and you have a skilled grower, you can use the shittiest fertilizer and you're still going to achieve a decent result. Now, put a really high-end fertilizer with someone who has the know-how in the right environment with consistent temperature, consistent humidity, and everything, all your details dialed in with the right genetics, now we're going for top shelf. And that is something we've always taken great pride in, is educating. I mean, they're on YouTube right now, we just finished something called 10 Factors to Maximize Your Yield. And it's a simple video on simple know-how. And the most important thing, I mean, we're also tied to a gentleman called the Garden Sage who does something called the Grower's Handbook in British Columbia, Canada. He's made a book called the Grower's Handbook. It's a fantastic book because all serious growers start with good education. And once you learn culturally good practices in the garden with the right genetics and then the right food, and usually it's found, most nutrient manufacturers say it's nutrients first and then maybe the right environment, and a poorly educated grower.
If anybody ever says nutrients first, environment second, you need to move away from them because they're chatting bullshit. Yeah,
they really are. They really are. And that's unfortunately been, this industry's rife with it.
It's sad that companies want to spend more money on marketing their products than making their product better.
Yeah.
I think you're the opposite way round. You'd rather spend the money on making it better rather than marketing the arse out of it.
We spend so little on marketing. I confidently would say this. We have the smallest marketing budget. Because as a business owner, I know that on average you see a 3 to 5% retention on your dollar in marketing anyways. That sucks. I'd much rather give away nutrients to people that are competent and say, here, try it out for free, which we don't do very often because there's such an insatiable demand for our product. We're in every single store in North America.
We have a lot of North American listeners. I can see you all subscribe and see you all listen. So while we're talking about you North Americans, big shout out to you. Thank you very much for subscribing. And I hope we're giving you some good information that is you're going to go out and have a little look at these Green Planet nutrients as well. There's one more thing we had a little chat about that you wanted to mention, and these are your geopots.
Yeah, so geopots, we're also, like we said, Geopot actually is the manufacturer of is Rhizoflora. They actually make the Turpinator. I forgot to mention that. Rhizoflora also are the manufacturer of Geopots. They're a fantastic product. It's a fabric container, high quality. They've done a lot of things differently from using a Velcro seam so you can transplant, which a lot of fabric containers you don't have that option.
That's a very good option. I like that.
And I mean, there's lots of things that a fabric container does. It does air pruning. It uses all the medium. The plant, basically the whole root ball, no different than human beings. We breathe. and those roots are absorbing oxygen. Now, in a plastic container, you have a few negative drawbacks. The first one is they don't breathe. Second thing is the plant becomes root bound. Once that root starts to circle the container, it does that for life. You don't have the ability to stop that. So even if you transplant it in a larger container, that root is already accustomed to spinning.
Essentially, it's strangling itself, isn't it?
Air pruning is a really, really important thing. I personally love hydroponics, and these can still be used in hydroponics. And it's really important to note that whole root ball breathes. So I'm very, very fond of the GeoPot. We're the exclusive Canadian distributor for GeoPot, and they do a lot of things differently. They've got beds, they've got individual pots. They're square on the bottom, so they stack beautiful in tables. It's a great product, and their sister company, Rhizoflora, make Turpinator. And when that first came out, I did a lot of testing on it personally, and I passed it within our network, and we tested it. And we were really impressed with the product.
For those, we mentioned Turpinator before, and I believed it was Green Plant Nutrients that were the makers of it. So for those that are wanting to listen out to Turpinator, we're going to have Turpinator on hopefully in a few minutes, or what will be your second episode, and we're going to talk much more in depth about Turpinator, because it's a product that really deserves a bit more attention, doesn't it? So if you're listening out for that, we're going to have that in our next episode, so definitely listen out for that one. And back to the GeoPots, something that my customers like to know: can they reuse them? Are they washable?
Certainly, yeah. A little bit of OxyClean, throw them in the dishwasher, the clothes washer, and 100% reusable. They're actually built really, really well. The stitching's using a marine grade nylon that does not break down. 100% reusable. If you've had any root disease, I don't recommend using any medium or anything. I mean, obviously, Pythium or Phytophthora, any of these types of things. Important to note, don't use any medium, and bleach the hell out of whatever medium. I wouldn't even consider using the same lines, the same spaghetti. If you've had any root disease, it's important, obviously. I know that this market is more hydro in smaller, meter by meter spaces. If you've had root disease, it's really important to look at the original genetics, make sure that the mother itself does not have root disease. If it does, it's passed on to the clone. Would
that be a weakened immune system is then passed on to these?
Correct.
Onto these
and
clones?
Then, it's also a very, very important thing to note, to watch your temperatures of your reservoir. Doing hydro, any chance you get above 68 to 72 degrees, that's kind of your zone. Any more than that, you're depleting the root of oxygen. Any warmer than that, you're also running the risk of getting into root diseases.
For those that are Celsius, that's 18 degrees Celsius. Try not to stray above 18. Maximum, we really don't want to be going over 20, 21 degrees Celsius. That's when oxygen concentration in your water drops, and the chances of pathogens in the water dramatically increases.
You have a high chance of anaerobic bacteria. You want to keep the plant in a very aerobic state. You better believe it. So
you came up with 3 great points there that I want to hit home with those 3 great points. The first one was, if you like to reuse your media or reuse your pots, and you've had anything like root rot or any sort of pathogens, you've got to do, first of all, a very good clean. Don't reuse media. Would you say don't reuse the pots where the root rot's been?
I wouldn't personally reuse. I wouldn't reuse any of the lines. I would completely
scrap what you've done. Crack on again.
Yeah, and bleach. Honestly, a 10% bleach solution. These are good cultural practices. If you've had fungus gnat or scarlet fly, also important to deal with that larvae. And I definitely would not reuse medium or the pots. It's time to clean up everything and change everything.
And also, as well as preventing it from happening again, you have to look at why you got it in the first place. Yeah. So in the future, you can improve. Look at the reasons. Go to your grow shop. Speak to your friends. Say, listen, this has happened. And then talk about your growing environment and try and get to the root cause, pardon the pun, of why you've got root rot, and it'll help you become the better grower. And you'll learn from it. Don't be disheartened if you have had it. Learn from the experience.
Every gardener has had root disease at one time or other, especially if you're passing around poor genetics. It usually shows its ugly head second week of flower, and the plant's just coming off a very stressful time, and that's really a telltale sign. Pythium wilt is a very noticeable thing also. When a plant goes through a wilting process, it looks like it's been underwatered, and obviously smell and overall look. You can look. There's lots of telltale signs. pH is dropping rapidly is another sign, and ensuring that you're not pumping, because a lot of people are running aero and they're pumping air into their reservoirs. Another thing that's really important is not to pump CO2 enriched air into your root zone because of carbonic acid. That will end up pushing a root into into a diminished state and actually getting root disease.
And also it's going to stop the nutrients from being absorbed as it increases your pH.
So yeah, it's really important to pump from a higher up area or a cool outside air. Using your air pump, bringing that fresh air into the root zone is important. It also is a great way of cooling off the reservoir. And another product which I find very interesting, it's available from HID. If you're a retail store and you're not currently doing business with Hydroponics Industry Direct, they're a great wholesale. And they also brought a product to market called Iceline, which I'm very fond of.
Great product.
I'm fond of stupid simple. You know, and this is just a line that's white on the outside and black on the inside, so you don't get the light penetrating the line and ending up with algae, and it reflects the light. And just having spaghetti and feed line that's white is a very, very simple way of cooling off your whole system a couple degrees.
Yeah. What was great when a product was brought to my attention, when products are brought to my attention, I will criticize heavily and say, well, what about this? That's my default state. I go, well, how have you done this? How have you done this? How have you done that? Iceline was brought to my attention. It was brought up into the office, and I instantly went, I love it. Yeah. Because it was so simple. Yeah. And it was like, how has somebody not thought of this already? Yeah. I mean, white reflective, black on the inner, that reflects that keeps the UV out, so you're not going to get algae, as you said. I just looked at it and thought, I want it. Get me 5 rolls.
You know, the best thing, honestly, is growers have realized, I mean, the best of the best is keeping it really simple. These plants have grown for years. Growing under full spectrum light is a no-brainer. They're accustomed to, you know, what we're trying to do is bring nature inside. And the ones that are doing best are giving consistent, high-quality products, but honestly, keeping it as simple as possible.
It's really easy to make something harder. So for a lot of companies, they try and make something really advanced and technical and hard to work. It may be good, it may be bad. The real geniuses of our industry make it easier. Make everyone's life simpler, and taking something that's hard to use and making it simple. If you've got an idea, that's a money maker right there. Before we finish, is there anything else, any other products that are due to come out, or any new products that you've tested that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, we put a ton of time and energy into R&D. We're always innovating. We have a new pH up and down powder coming to market soon. We currently revamped our liquid pH up and down, because we were offering a very, very high concentration pH up and down, and found that just shipping, and we ran the risk of bringing something that's too dangerous. Someone gets that in their eye, we decided we're going to bring something a little less caustic.
Evidence there that you are actually care about the people using your products.
You know, it hasn't happened, and currently there are other manufacturers that provide potassium hydroxide percentages at 75%, or phosphoric acid at 45%. These things, you run the risk, regardless of that's what it's more concentrated, you run the risk of losing someone's eye. It's not worth it. So we're coming out with products that are slightly more diluted, but better for the ma and pa, or and we're going to be adding colorant, natural colorant. We don't put food coloring in any of our products, or any chemical or synthetic dyes in any of our products. We really are purists when it comes to manufacturing, and if it doesn't benefit the plant, we don't put it in.
A good example of what you were mentioning there about the pH down, the pH up. We had in our shop, we had a leaky bottle of pH down, and it wasn't one of those concentrated ones that you were talking about. It was pretty concentrated, but nowhere near as what you mentioned there, 45%. The bottle was a bit loose. I think it got knocked a few times, and obviously some of this has run down onto what is a wood amalgam. It's not fully wood, it was an amalgam of wood, and a week to 2 weeks later, a hole right through the wood. Yeah. You can nearly get your fist through this hole. So it just shows you how dangerous these chemicals can be. Yeah. So take care.
There has to be social responsibility when you're manufacturing. You know, we have to look at that as the manufacturer. I want to bring out products that are going to be safe, and not follow what others are doing, because there are other manufacturers that bring those to market, and they're illegal to ship, and they're actually, quite frankly, extremely dangerous to sell. So we had to. We've tried to rethink a lot of what we do. We do our best not to follow anyone else, and that's on every one of our products. We're the only ones in the industry that offer a powdered enzyme. Because
what's this product called?
It's called Zyme. I think we were the second manufacturer of an enzyme in the industry, and we decided right out of the gate, let's do a powdered, because we could have the widest range of enzymes. It also is more cost effective, much longer shelf life, and enzymes degrade upon themselves within the bottle. So regardless of how long it's been on the shelf, you have no idea. We were able to give a much more consistent, standardized product, being a powdered enzyme 1 capsule for every 10 gallons. These things, I mean, it just rings true to everything we do. We want to do things better.
And I really respect that for you as a company, because what we believe in the industry, we want to improve our industry, we want to make everything better. And what I say this quite often on the show, and I only apply it to companies that I really believe it applies to, is these guys are innovators, they're not imitators. I don't have imitators on my show because I don't like people that imitate. Have some originality, have some thought process, have some creativity, and come up with great products. And that's exactly what I believe. I've only been with these guys for 4 or 5 hours today, and I know already the passion, it comes through in tons and tons, just the passion oozes out of you. So I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for coming onto the show. And what I like to ask all the people that come onto the show is, what is your top tip for our growers, whether it's environment or nutrients, any type of system? If you could give one tip to all of our listeners, what would it be?
Use Green Planet nutrients. That's the first thing. It's a small one. We were just talking about pH up and down. This is not a top tip, but it's something that people overlook. Yeah. Always, regardless of whatever pH up and down you're using, pre-dilute it. Get a gallon of water, add a capful of the concentrated pH up or down, and then add that to your reservoir. It's something that people overlook. Anytime you have vast fluctuations of pH within a reservoir, you run the risk of all nutrients being locked out. If you ever see clouding in a reservoir, that's really calcium locking out right out of the gate. It's a small tip, but also educate yourself. Education is everything. Visit thegardenstage.com, go to our website, mygreenplanet.com, and honestly, get onto YouTube. Be careful what you listen to, because there's a lot of misinformation. But when you find someone that knows what they're talking about, that's going to really lend true to what we do. We just did a video series called 10 Factors That Maximize Yield. It's a free video series. It's about 20 minutes long, but it's really, really true. Good information. No bullshit, coming straight and telling growers what they need to hear.
And our listeners can find this on YouTube, and they just type in 10 factors to
maximize your yield.
To maximize your
Green
yield.
Planet. That's one thing we did. And, honestly, you can never stop learning. One of my mentors in the industry is a owner of one of the largest nutrient manufacturers. And years and years, 20 years ago, he said to me, the more I know, the less I know. And every single time we're learning about the products, there's some, curveball from left field. I mean, what a lot of people don't understand is carbohydrates actually have a carbon to nitrogen ratio, which is why you see a lot of flushing agents full of carbohydrates. My biggest advice probably would be less is more.
I love you guys. Well, those top tips are just spot on, and
less is more. I mean, using 20 different bottles, throwing them in your reservoir, and making nutrient companies rich. Good for them for misinformation, but bad for you. Educate yourself. Find quality products, and don't run more than the bottle. Don't think, pounding them with 10 different products or 3 different carbohydrate sources is going to do better. Because, quite frankly, if you're running a feed program from a nutrient manufacturer, stick with one line. Because I've been in the retail hydroponics also for many years, and a lot of the times you'll see people walking up to the counter with 3 different products that have the exact same ingredient, and they're wondering why they're having bad results. Because excessive amounts of anything is going to throw off ratios. And ratios are very, very important. The plant is used to certain ratios. And there's a carbon. I mean, carbohydrates are carbon. And there's a carbon to nitrogen ratio that has to be met. And if it's off, it'll start robbing nitrogen from the plant. And there's many different sources of nitrogen. And we're very, very fond of non-urea based nitrogen sources. Urea doesn't flush well out.
It can burn the plant quite easily as well.
It can burn yeah, you better believe it. And you also need an enzyme to break down urea called urease. So if you all of a sudden have spikes of urease that the plant goes through, you'll end up having large sources of nitrogen all of a sudden coming out. I can go on for hours.
I've got a feeling we're going to have you on the show again sometime soon.
It's just educate yourselves and don't fall into misinformation.
Great, they're fantastic tips. Do you have a Facebook and or Twitter? Do you have any of them for our listeners to follow?
You visit MyaGreenPlanet.com, and there's Facebook there under Maya Green Planet. MYA Green Planet is our Facebook, and I know there's a Twitter account, and I know we've got blogs under theGrowingSociety.com is one of our blogs that we do, or it's a society that we're involved in, and that's vegetable production, food production on a larger scale, very, very non-gray blog site, and
lots of information.
There's a lot of information out there, and if you get the right line on good quality information, you're going to be a better grower for it.
Well, you Green Planet Nutrients, you definitely get the NPK seal approval. We're on the same wavelength. We think exactly the same with regards to less is more. You've come up with some fantastic quotes that I absolutely believe in, and you've given us some top tips. So thank you very much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And guys, if you want to know more about Green Planet, check out the website, and it's packed full of great information. Get yourselves in there, and like he said, educate. Thank you very much,
awesome.
Justin.
Thank you so much.
Speak to you soon.
Take care. Happy growing.